Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope you're having a great morning, and thanks for joining us here on Tuesday Talks. My name is Tom Hudock. I'm with a company called Craft Buildings. We're based here centrally in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area, and we work with clients essentially across the country, helping them find buildings suitable for the craft beverage business. I'd love to jump in and talk about what I feel are the top 5 things to consider when locating a building, and a little bit of backstory before I do start. I started this company in 2018, so prior to the pandemic and everything that's brought on to the craft beverage world for sure. Prior to 2018, I started a sister business called My Beer Brand. Doing that since 2016, which is essentially a full service craft beverage consulting company. So we essentially start with the brand as a foundation and work all the way through to getting someone up and running. So the need for really good guidance in the building space, again, came about probably in 2017 after a lot of my clients just had terrible horror stories coming through as we were working on projects. And I said, you know what? I felt really compelled to, again, jump in and add this service to kind of our repertoire. So I'm a licensed real estate agent here in the state of Minnesota, only in the state of Minnesota. So I am happy to work and partner with great real estate attorneys and commercial real estate agents, again, across the country and around the world. And again, a lot of our services specific to the brewery side of things help get people right to the point of essentially either signing the lease or signing off on a purchase for a building. So let's jump right in. So we're going to do number 5 here. And if you can figure out maybe what number 5 would be, but I'll give it to you right away here. So let's talk about character. So again, everyone knows that if you step foot in a really neat building, there's usually a story along with it. So was it used for potentially a unique purpose or purposes in the past? Everyone loves, exposed brick, beams, steel, etc. Did something famous happen within the walls? Is the building made up of rare stone or locally produced brick? And definitely something to catch your eye here. Hopefully you're still awake. Take a sip of coffee. Were the beams in the building actually part of the Mayflower or something like that? But all jokes aside, again, character is something that I really suggest people dig into into a building. There is definitely a time and place for a brand new building, and again, I would not disagree with that for sure. But really, we want to consider what's going on with the character of a building. And a lot of times clients will come to me with pictures, or we'll stop by something physically, and it could be that condemned blighted building in the industrial park that just hasn't been used in 30 years, or it could be something that the city is trying to push and get out there and have a tenant in there. So know that you can be able to leverage the character in this building right within your brand itself. So it could be assets of the design. Your logo could actually be part of the shape of the building or take compliments from that. So really think about that as a key characteristic, no pun intended, within your brand in your craft beverage business. And again, I could make a case for 45 minutes on new construction as well. And sometimes that just makes more sense too. But again, I'm a sucker at heart for old properties, and if we can make them work, we would sure love to. All right, let's talk about number 4. So size. Now, does size matter, or is it how you use it? So obviously we've heard this in a lot of different relations, but it really can be a double-edged sword, and definitely a serious conversation to dig into. So several of the criteria that we tend to look at and help our clients with is how we actually go about determining a suitable business size. So we really want to look at your size of your existing or proposed brew system. So if you have a great manufacturer, again, we work with several. as well, but they're gonna be also leading this charge, and they're gonna have things like, again, uh, definitely square footage required for the footprint, height requirements, so you're not knocking your head when you're doing batching and actually doing your brew days. Same with fermenters, clear heights. How can you get those pieces of equipment in and out of the building, either as you build it out for future expansion and just day-to-day service with raw materials, etc. Also, um, the production output as an important factor. So really what we like to do again is look at your business plan and what that 5-year mark might look like. What are you proposing to be producing 5 years from now? What we really want to do is possibly work backwards from that and get a building suitable for 5 years from now. So that's not always something that is suitable or doable just because of limitations, budgets, just real estate, etc. But in a perfect world, we want you to be in that building that you're going to be in for at least 5 years or more. And it's just something that we always try to achieve. And depending again on the style or the type of brewery that you're looking at, are you going to start out as nano? So essentially just doing small batches, just produced for on-site consumption, nothing else out the door. Are you going to have a food element? Are you going to be a brew pub where possibly there is some small takeout on that side of things? Or, are you going to jump into a full production, or are you going to be a destination brewery? So all great factors to consider. So when we move here to square foot calculation, I want to give nod to the Microbrewer podcast. These guys are a great group of intelligent folks within the community. And actually back in 2015, they did a really unique study. So they took a lot of data. They interviewed about 21 breweries across the US, and I think even one in Ireland, maybe just for fun. And they pulled and they compiled all of this data across all of the breweries. And they provided, again, information from nano to full production breweries, so really across the spectrum. And what they really found is once they crunched all the numbers, that the median square footage per barrel of production was about 2.16 square feet per barrel produced. So again, a lot of number crunching, a lot of math to get to that point. But a really good example here would be, for instance, most commonly your brew pub setup size of brew house could be a 10 or 15 barrel system. So in this example I have featured here, we have a 10 barrel brew house. Typically, you can produce about 5,000 barrels a year. And what we've done again is just some simple math and calculated that with that 5,000 barrel mark at that 2.16 square foot per barrel, that building should be suitable at around just under 11,000 square feet. Again, this is a loose number. There's a lot of great architects in the space too that'll say it's pretty much 1 square foot to one barrel. So we all fall within some pretty close tolerances here, but these are always good places to start. Again, sometimes there just might be a feeling about it too. If you're checking off a lot of the other boxes, ceiling height works out, there's really good accessibility, parking, etc. It might be a home run already, but this is again a baseline that we typically use just to try to flesh out some options for clients as well. And then again, circling back to, we really want to look at what that business plan is calling for. So are you going to be a nano brewery? Are you going to be just a brew pub model? Are you going to be full scale production where, you're doing distribution maybe within your state or next door to another state? Or multi-state, or are you going to be a destination brewery? We have some great examples. Obviously, here in the U.S., probably every state has some great examples for sure. And there's definitely a unique factor with that too. Outside of good beer, good atmosphere and location is something to consider as well. So this kind of dovetails into my number 3, and you might be familiar with this photo. This is from the Field of Dreams in Iowa, and obviously that whole premise of that movie is, if you build it, they will come. And one thing I really look at is location, location, location. And really, unlike most things, location is not necessarily the be all and end all. You could, again, have really great beer and be producing that out of an old gas station or a single stall garage. So there are, again, many great examples of businesses and buildings, housing, great beverage brands. And someone actually might drive an hour and a half or 2 hours to get there, and just because of the reputation of the beer itself. Or it could be a very unique building and the brand is really cool, and someone just wants a really cool t-shirt and they're gonna drive for that too. So a lot to obviously take into consideration, but don't limit yourself on location. Again, I would say drive with the brand itself and the quality of the product, and people will figure out where you're from. So some great examples here of some destination breweries. We've got obviously New Belgium out in Fort Collins, Colorado. Again, really, essentially out in the middle of nowhere. But again, this is the flagship for this, again, multi-state brewery. And it's an experience, just like a winery or something else. I mean, you can essentially bring your family here for the day and hang out. Or on the flip side, this is actually Bang Brewing, kind of in my backyard in St. Paul, Minnesota. And essentially, this is an example of really not necessarily caring about the location, but building something unique enough that people are going to come for quality beer and to enjoy a very unique experience. So a little backstory on this. This actually is on a site. It's probably just shy of an acre. Essentially was a blighted industrial parking lot. And it is a very heavy industrial area where this brewery is located. And essentially, the couple that runs this, they again were home brewers. They wanted to start their own thing, get out of their, again, day-to-day actual jobs, and do the thing that they passionately love and share that with others. So essentially, they looked and researched about all different kinds of buildings that they could actually put on this site, and they actually ended up putting a corn silo or corn crib on this and housing, I believe it's a 10-barrel system inside of this, along with a tap room, cold storage, and an office. So it all works. It is super cool. And I believe this has won some awards for being green, maybe LEED, some of those others, but definitely a cool, essentially, destination location that people will come and find. And again, this was an example of new construction. So the character here was definitely found in new construction versus something that was maybe 100 years old. So just some definite things to get your wheels churning. And then number 2, let's jump in. All right. So obviously it's the season of concerts. Journey obviously is back on the scene this year. I think they've got a large anniversary, 50 years maybe. But again, the famous song, obviously with the original frontman, Steve Perry, Open Arms. This is a really serious topic, but you want to have the same feels as you have with these really great 80s ballads. And what I mean is the feeling needs to be mutual when you're actually researching communities and going into an area that wants to welcome you as a business and wants to work with you. So all too often, again, we hear about the horror stories of craft beverage businesses literally just trying to get into a space, and there's resistance right away from either a township, the county, etc., about it. Maybe there aren't the laws in the books that allow for production of alcohol in that space. So it's an uphill battle with planning and zoning, where someone's going to have to, again, get maybe conditional use permits, or actually the law changed to allow for a business like this to happen. So again, our recommendation definitely on the front end, if you can, find that community that's going to welcome you with open arms. You really have to feel the love, and you want to feel that mutually right away. And one good tip, something to definitely take away from this morning is, start to befriend maybe members of the planning and zoning committee or the city council or even the mayor. For instance, if it's, again, you're in a smaller town, if it's your town, they should know who you are. And that story of your craft beverage business should be polished, and, you should be able to rattle that off very easily and really create a compelling case for yourself. But again, I would say be cautious, but also be creative. Know that you can reach out to these members of the local government, and maybe you invite them to a brew day at your house, have them test the product, etc. So just be creative in that. Know that the majority of your local government officials are there, obviously, to support you. You pay taxes, and you use those services. I would say the most underutilized people in city government are city planners. And again, they're always looking for great ideas, because essentially it makes them look better to bring fresh ideas to the communities and that kind of thing. So befriend these people, take them to coffee, send them your business plan, etc. And again, they have direct connections to the city council, and they're essentially obligated to share those business plans and everything else. And maybe you find a champion as a member of, again, planning or zoning, which usually happens first, and then city council to move things through and get you approved. Obviously, it's different at the national level. You still have your TTB and all your federal licensings. Not a lot of relationship building you can do, unfortunately, with the U.S. government. It is really impersonal, and it's just part of a process. There are some, people and ways to, build relationships if you don't have with that. But most often, again, you're just kind of a number waiting in line for those. And most often people are waiting for those approvals too, just because of, obviously, the size and breadth of the government itself. But again, as much as you can do with the grassroots ground building efforts to build that community, and maybe you already have an established community, it's the best thing that you can do for your brand and your future business. Or even if you're growing, you're possibly expanding into a new community. Definitely build those relationships. And I think we're getting into midterms this November too. So, hey, it's a good opportunity to get out and have good conversations around, politics and also what, your goals are as a future or a current business owner. So I want to stop here for a couple seconds. Just want to make sure if there are any questions, people can jump in. I'd love to answer that. If not, we'll have a little bit of time here at the end as well. But want to definitely save time to address any questions that people may have. All right, let's pop back into the presentation here and get to maybe the most important piece. Number one in the David Letterman form. Here we go. Water. And I say this with the most seriousness of all. Again, someone might have actually flipped this presentation and led with the building itself. But water, obviously, just like the human body, our bodies are made up of 60% of water. Beer is typically made up of over 90% of water. Water is super important in obviously the brewing process, but also the whole building process and really the success of your business. So again, I don't say this lightly. Water and wastewater can kill a deal very easily. So we tend to lead with this and we work backwards. So again, a lot of my first questions, again, working with clients across the country is, have you spoken to your local government? Have you talked to either someone in wastewater treatment or the water department? We need to know what's going on with your water service. And again, projects and budgets for construction and build out can be blown apart by dealings of water and wastewater management. It even gets more complex if you're essentially off the grid of city services, where you're dealing with possibly a well or septic systems. Obviously, we know there's a lot of natural waste that comes out of the brewing process. And again, how do you deal with that? And we definitely want to be on the forefront of that. So, everyone talks about how are you going to pitch your drains to the center of the production space and whatever. I mean, that is, again, probably 100 on the list of number one when we're talking about water and how that's going to be serviced and etc. If we bring back in number 5, the character of a building, essentially the older the building, most likely the more expensive your water might become, and water service into the building as well. So definitely water is a main factor here when considering this. So yeah, that's really my top 5 list here. I'd love to answer some questions, and I'm happy to go back and address anything else that I've covered quickly here this morning. We definitely have some great time. And Craig, thanks for jumping in. I'll read your question and then I'll address it here. I appreciate it. So Craig says, do you have any advice on the range of lease versus cost revenue ratio that would be ideal, or what is too high to have a sustainable small tap room focused brewery? So great questions. And again, coming from a real estate agent's perspective, obviously if you can own something outright and be in that building and own it to yourself, that would be number one priority. If you can't, again, most often, especially here in our area, the cheapest square footage is going to be essentially industrial or light industrial. Most often we find that's probably $15 a square foot or less. Most often it's like $10 a square foot or less. But you definitely would have to run the numbers. And most often, the least amount of cost per square foot per month is going to allow you to, again, operate a business possibly more profitably. But it really depends on what your actual revenue is also going to be. So, in a perfect world, you're producing high revenue, high margin beer that stays within your walls. Obviously, if you have a model that brings it out where you're in production, your revenues are obviously going to be diminished once your beer is in distribution, just because of the model and how people start taking portions that away. So in my mind, if you're running a small or looking to run a small tap room, keep everything you can inside the walls, have that high margin beer that you can churn quickly. So is it, just a couple weeks from brew kettle to glass, and, have a great atmosphere and everything else that will bring people back. Most often, if you can have essentially a pint costing you 15 cents or less, and that's essentially your gross revenue, that's excellent. So, if you can blow through, a couple hundred or 1,000 pints in a month, you're sitting probably pretty good. Obviously, you have a lot to think in as well, staffing, overhead, etc. But the more you can keep things in house, the better. But obviously, we know that being in distribution has its benefits as well, and that's also going to grow your future business. So, and again, Craig, let me know if I've answered that to your liking. Again, I'm happy to talk further about that as well, and would love to continue to see if there's anyone else that has questions. And one other thing too, while I wait maybe for some more questions to come in, building codes. We can talk about that as well. Those definitely vary from town to town, county to county, state to state. Also something to have at the top of mind too when evaluating a building. Again, one of the services that we actually offer our clients is essentially a deep dive or essentially a really good inspection on a property. So if we've determined a short list of properties, maybe top three, we will actually bring in experts to essentially evaluate that building as much as we can. So could be an architect, could be a structural engineer, and possibly electrician, plumber, etc. And essentially, it's taking that maybe future contracting team and giving you a very good understanding or at least hypothesis of what might be coming as you plan for a build out and getting a building up and running. So some very interesting things. They're definitely worth their weight in time. Again, we've all heard horror stories and about this in the industry as well. That I think we need to hear more wins and people doing it right for the start. So that's one of our main drivers. So, and Craig, thanks, for the further comments here, and I'll read this as well for everyone. So Craig says, do you have any other concerns or pitfalls to look for in our experience with a mixed use facility, multiple tenants, etc.? Yep, a couple key things we want to look at mixed use. Obviously, what that mixed use falls into. Some municipalities are broad in essentially their zoning or what you might have, and then the mix up of tenants. So unfortunately, obviously, you hear a lot of stories about essentially bad raps for breweries or off smells and what a brewery as a production facility will do potentially for a community. Are you going to have a bakery or something else, maybe in a strip mall place, or what is maybe the makeup of that future tenant mix? Something to consider, and then also try to fill the void. Maybe there's a really good restaurant in this facility, or a really good fast service. It could be even like a dry cleaner or something where there's always traffic and people tend to come there weekly or even multiple times a week, where you could fill that void maybe in a space that is needing something like this as well. And again, that could also work into a pitch to maybe that landlord with a pitch to say, listen, you've had this space available for 3 years. You don't have any income coming in from a tenant. Let's work out a deal. And, at the same time, we'd love to see maybe some tenant improvement or TI, as they call it in the industry, money coming from you to help us out and help us build out this space, obviously with maybe a lease that is mutually beneficial for everyone. But so hopefully, Craig, a couple little nuggets there as well. It really is a case by case basis, and again, I'm happy to explore maybe what you're looking at and give you a little bit more ideas around that and maybe questions to pose. But we're at about the 30-minute mark here. And again, definitely encourage you to submit any other questions I have. And, if not, definitely appreciate your time today and look forward to the opportunity to helping you or anyone else you might know in the industry. And just want to put up my contact information. Again, super accessible. We'll love to have a conversation around what needs or concerns that you might have as you evaluate a building. And just as important as branding might be, we definitely feel the building and what will actually be surrounding your actual business will be is very important. And that's what we're here for, and want you to be as successful as you can. Have a great Tuesday, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Tuesday Talks. Hopefully we can talk soon.